Salt-N-Pepa suing Universal over the ownership of their master recordings. This is such an important thing, you guys. If you make music, you need to know about this, and this is your right to revert your copyrights back to you. What is this? But real quick, so Salt-N-Pepa sue Universal over ownership of their master recordings. Universal says it remains committed to working towards an amicable resolution. I read this complaint. We're going to take a look at it. I'm just floored. But for all the fans in the back, let's talk about it. You are definitely a fan.
I love Salt-N-Pepa. They are such an important group in my musical journey as my growing up. When the story came about and I was just like looking, I took a look at the Spotify and I noticed like all the first couple of records are all gone. It just kind of starts, I believe it starts with a Very Necessary record, but like the original versions of Push It, Do You Want Me? I believe Expression is still on there. Let's Talk About Sex, which is like a huge hit, is no longer on platforms. And I believe that's part of the retaliation that they're talking about. They have 4.4 million Spotify monthly listeners, and I argue that some of their biggest and classic hits aren't even on there. So I mean, they're missing out on tons of just not only credibility, revenue, all of those things. The versions of Push It that are on there are the re-recorded versions because they re-recorded Push It, Shoop, What a Man for the label Cleopatra. So if you're listening to Push It on Spotify, that's the version that you're listening to. A couple years ago, they started re-putting their music videos back on YouTube. It seems like they've been going through some kind of process.
So, what they're trying to do is under 17 USC Section 203, the termination of transfers and licenses granted by authors. They sent a little notice, and this was a termination notice. You can do this under Section 203. If your creative stuff was published after 1978, what happens is that if you did not give a work for hire, if you didn't say, hey, record label, we're giving you a work for hire, you're going to own this music forever and ever and ever. If you don't get that, there's this mechanism under the Copyright Act after 35 years to reclaim the rights, right? So this is called the second chance law. And so if it's just a license, the license you just gave it. It was a temporary kind of thing. And so after 35 years, it gives people a second bite at the apple. Well, or their heirs as applicable. So they sent this notice to their label and they go, hey, we're terminating. They also have to send a copy to the copyright office. They did all of the things. And then Universal came back and Universal said, no, we're not accepting your notice. So now they've decided to file a lawsuit. Let's take a quick peek at that. In the factual background, they entered into an agreement in the production agreement. This was from 86. There were recording services and they agreed to record a whole bunch of things, right? And these whole bunch of things ended up becoming all of their hit music, which was contained on these hit albums. And so they go through the story and they tell us the process of how they did all of this. They signed with different labels, and then the music ended up getting assigned eventually to Universal. They go on to be like, look, these are not low revenue generating songs. Our
Right.
numbers are in the hundreds of millions and continuing to climb. So fairly, they've been very, very successful. And so they go, all right. So we went in and we took a peek at all the contracts that we signed,
Icons.
and we noticed that notably this work for hire language was not in the contracts. And so they sent the letters and they signed, they looked at everything and they go, you know what? It doesn't look like we actually assigned the rights through work for hire. So therefore, it was just a license. And if it was just a license, we are now within that window that we get to serve this notice. And P.S., there's a process you have to go through. If you're someone who's kind of a legacy act, or you are the estate, you are the heir of a legacy act, there's two different ways to cancel these types of contracts to get the copyright back. This is one of those ways. The other one is through Section 304C. And it just has to do with when the music was actually created. So what was interesting is we pulled not just the complaint, but we also pulled how Universal responded to them. So they send their letter and they go, hey, we're canceling. And this is what Universal said back. Dear Miss Denton and Miss James, we write on behalf of Universal. And in regards to your letter, you say in regards to all this music, and they go through a big long list. Black Magic, Very Necessary, Brand New. They jump into something like 8 pages. And they essentially tell the duo to go pound sand.
Yeah.
And they go, you know what? We don't think what you did is just an assignment. We believe that the language infers that you were giving us the rights under copyright law. It was a work for hire. And so we dispute this. Now, the most amazing part of all of this, as the story continues to unfold from the complaint, is they go, besides being awesome, Plaintiff is one of the best and most widely known rap acts of all time. They've been doing
Facts.
their thing for
Facts.
decades. Okay, so they issue the notice. Notice of termination goes to the Copyright Office. In response, they sent that letter that we just read through. And then what Universal ended up doing was 2 years later, when the time came that the contract actually terminated, what they did is they took the music off of streaming channels.
Yep.
Now the duo goes on in the complaint just to be like, we think it was because this was retaliation. But it's also evidence that Universal knew that it was infringing our rights because they took the music down. Because what happens, right? If you continue to distribute music that you don't have rights to anymore, well, that's copyright infringement.
Right.
But what they're saying is that Universal is still refusing, or doing a bunch of things, right? Refusing to play ball because they're like, we'll enter a new agreement. We're going to do this exploitation agreement for Section 203 and all this stuff. And they're like, it's just so ironic that Universal would remove the music at the exact same time that their rights lapsed. But now guess what? And you know, what was this, a year ago? So for a year, their music has not been monetized. That's a lot of revenue that they've lost.
I'm saying this just kind of, again, outlines a lot of the way that the record industry does these deals, and how these artists that are these huge artists that were just trying to, get put on, ended up just kind of, getting screwed in the end. And just why the knowledge that is available now on YouTube and just the different resources wasn't available then, for them to learn some of these things maybe ahead of time as well. I'm tired of seeing some of my favorite artists that have literally shaped the culture and the music community. And Salt-N-Pepa is definitely one of those acts that do it. I mean, just their activism. There was a whole thing that was going on around then of a sound. And it's a shame that they're not profiting off of these legendary, impactful songs that are still played daily.
Well, and what's weird to me is that they basically did a new deal, a Section 203 agreement, so that the label could keep monetizing the music. So I did one of these deals, right? So we sent the termination, and actually it was for Universal as well. And we go, but our clients aren't the best as far as like monetizing music and knowing where to go and doing these deals. So we'll do a new deal with you. We don't get to just keep collecting the revenue. We got to do a new deal. So what they're asking here is two things. One, they're asking for a declaratory relief. They're saying, court, we need you to confirm that in fact the termination notice was effective. They don't have the rights anymore because they're fighting us on this. That's number one. And then number two, they're asking for conversion. So they're saying, court, we need you to say that basically they have earned money without, the rights. And quite frankly, they've caused, a loss of royalties. So so that's what they're saying here, and I think they have a really good case.
I hope so. I hate to see that, some of my favorite influential acts are not where they should be sitting just because of just predatory practices. These labels that make so much money, you rarely hear about these labels just like doing the right thing.
Drop your favorite Salt-N-Pepa song down below. Give some positive vibes. We'll continue covering this story. I'm Top Music Attorney. We'll see you on the next one.